Yo, what's good YouTube? Zamcrow here, aka Scoot, back with the Pokemon Battle Federation, and we've got Season 9 here. We've got our um, Season 9 draft analysis here. We just drafted a couple weeks ago or so, but we're still not starting until January. Was able to get a smooth draft, able to get all of our coaches some new faces. Well, not necessarily any new faces, maybe one new face. Some new logos and stuff, which is pretty cool. But for the majority, pretty much every coach here has participated from season 1 to season 8, sometime in between those seasons. And we've got one new coach, which is going to be Kirby, coming over. Met him in the NNDL. Actually, I met him a long time ago, Smogon stuff. But he plays in the NNDL, and he played in the IDM, and now we've got him over here in the PBF as well. So if you look at the PBF banner here, you got the St. Kilda Superiors, Pittsburgh Primarinas, Blackmont Raikougars, coached by us, of course, and then you got the Montreal Monfernos. We've got Sebi coming back for Season 9, which is really hype. We've got Kirby, AAA, with the the Albany, I had to think about that for a second. Albany Altarias, and then AAA, like I mentioned, with his Evansville Dewaters. And then, you can't see it, but on the left-hand side, there's another Pokemon Battle Federation logo. But behind that, we have the RB Leipzig Zigzagoons. We've got the Toronto Star Raptors back there as well. You can see a little bit of their logos. And then we've got the St. Louis Carbinks underneath my logos. So we've got Andy coming back. Ryan and Noodle coaching the other two, respectively. Then we've got the Minnesota Shinx, which is a new logo, which is going to be coached by Snorlaxus or Corey, whatever you want to call him. And formerly coach of the San Diego Snorlax, or the Minnesota Manetrix, depending on which league he's in, whatever. But now we got the Minnesota Shinx with this dope new logo. I love it. We've got Curtis with the Wisbecktown Weezings, and Ginger, the returning, defending, reigning champion, coach of the E-Town Escavaliers. So really hot for this. We've got our draft, and we can go ahead and hop into it with our first pick. And with our first pick, we managed to grab Tapu Koko, which I was really excited about. I don't remember what pick we got. I think maybe third overall pick or something like that, and we managed to grab Coco at number 3. So yeah, I was pretty satisfied with that. Unfortunately, we had to wait a super long time before we could grab our second pick. But yeah, having third pick meant we got one of the top 3 Pokemon in the format, potentially one of the well, this is, in my opinion, the best Pokemon in the format. It's got that base 130 speed, Volt switching, Thunderbolt, Wild Charge, very fast electric type. It's able to get momentum. It's got access to Volt Switch and U-turn, which makes it phenomenal. It gets access to Taunt, which is awesome. Prevents rocks, prevents setup, things like that. It gets access to Roost, which is really nice because it's like a fucking rooster or something. Excuse my language. Anyways, it can roost up, get its health back. It gets Calm Mind and Work Up. It gets all kinds of cool coverage, I should say, and then it has awesome stats: base 130 speed, base 115, and base 95 attack and special attack. It's not incredibly super hard hitting or anything like that, but with its electric surge boosting its electric type moves, this thing becomes a real pain in the butt for some people. Like I mentioned, Wild Charge, Thunderbolt, Thunder, really powerful electric type spam in the electric surge with activating the electric terrain. It does get fairy moves as well, so it's not like automatically walled by like ground types. It gets cool coverage too: Grass Knot, Dazzling Gleam, Brave Bird. I guess it's not really that diverse in terms of its attacking move pools, but it does get some cool things, like I mentioned, agility, Calm Mind. It can even defog. It gets access to discharge, like I mentioned earlier. It also gets Iron Head, dual screens, which is really cool, and Nature's Madness, which is really awesome, especially if you run Guardian of Alola with the Z move, which does 75% instead of half. Like I mentioned, Taunt gets Thunder Wave, obviously. U-turn and volt switch like I mentioned earlier. So yeah, just really, really amazing coverage there in my opinion. Um, for its typing and its speed. Everything this thing does is just so cool in my opinion, and it's got a sick design in my opinion. Like I can't really say enough about. I really do. I think it's better than Landers. Like maybe not like 1v1 or anything like that, but I think this mon can support your whole team so well, and it can also be supported by a team so well. I think it's the best Pokemon in the format. It has decent HP, defense, and special defense at 70, 85, and 75, which is not great, but it's not bad. It's roughly average, I would say. And I don't know. I just think Coco is one of the best Pokemon, and I'm really excited to use it once again. I've used it I think I used it in the IDM Season 2 and maybe some tournaments, but I don't think I've used it outside of that. And I'm really excited to use it again. And the first time I used it, I didn't have Z moves. This is one of my Z move users for this season. So really hyped for that. And I guess we can. I'm not going to sit here and go through all of its move sets or anything like that. Talk about all the sets I could run: Life Orb, Specs, Magnet, whatever. Z moves as well, like Supersonic Sky Strike and Gigavolt Havoc and Twinkle Tackle, all that stuff. I'm not really going to sit here and talk about all that. I'm just going to give a brief analysis on why I drafted Coco, not what all it can do. You guys know what it can do. You guys are intelligent Pokemon battlers and trainers and so on and so forth. So yeah, gonna leave it at that for Coco, and we can move on to our second pick. So I don't know how, I don't know why, I don't know when, I do know when, but Kieran Black just didn't get picked up, and I can't really explain it. I don't know why. It made it all the way back to me, and it wasn't in my draft plan at all. I had a different dragon in mind and everything. This thing fell to me, and I was I messaged Sebi. I was like, dude, Kieran Black's not being picked. If AAA doesn't pick it right before my pick, I'm taking it. AAA didn't pick it. I saw the bad boy laying there, and this Tapu Koko, Landorus Therian, Celesteela, Kieran Black, and probably Mew are my top 5 Pokemon in draft format. I got 2 of the top 5, in my opinion. So I've got Tapu Koko and Kieran Black now. So Kieran Black appreciates Koko so much. So both of these Pokemon are incredibly fierce in terms of offensive damage. And both of them have Roost. So I can make them as bulky as possible with the most damage output and give them whatever speed creep they need. And these Pokemon are going to appreciate each other so much. Koko U-turning or Volt switching into Kieran Black as a grass type or a ground type comes in. I just U-turn out into Kieran Black. Just click that Ice Beam and something's going to die. Click that Dragon Claw or that Outrage and something's going to die. This thing is, without a doubt, one of the best Pokemon in the format, like I mentioned earlier. And I don't even think so. So what makes Landorus so good now is Z moves. What makes Celesteela so good now is Z moves. Now, I know Celesteela can be incredibly annoying without Z moves, but Z moves make these Pokemon top tier threats. Kieran Black, he don't need no fucking Z move. Look at them stats. Base 125 HP. This thing's fat. Look at the defense and the special defense. 190. It's fat. Base 170 attack and 120 special attack. This thing is nuking things left and right. Base 95 speed, so it's not slow. It's not incredibly fast, but it's not slow. It's one of those mid-tier speed tiers, and it's just this thing. You can't wall it. You can't wall it. You can't. There is no mon in the format that's going to be able to 1v1 this thing. It just has too good of coverage. Like Steel types are dropping the Earth Power, Water types are dropping the Fusion Bolt, and then it's dual stab groups. Everything else, it's so good. It has phenomenal coverage. It gets like Shadow Claw, Earth Power, Fusion Bolt. It gets Endeavor, which is nice. It gets Focus Blast. It gets Iron Head, Outrage, Rock Slide, Shadow Ball, Signal Beam, Stone Edge, Zen Headbutt. It gets all kinds of things, and it's so fat it can be a really, 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 really nice sub Roostmon with just 2 attacks. Has the ability Terravolt. How have I not mentioned that yet? Its ability makes it it's so much better than what it already was. just based on its stats alone. So look at its ability, Terravote. It ignores your opponent's ability. So if it's got thick fat, Ice Beam's still ripping you a new one. If you got sturdy, you're not surviving one hit. It don't matter if you're at full or not, you're not surviving. So yeah, Kieran Black, just one of the best Pokemon in the format. Pairs really well with Coco, coming in off those U-turns and those Volt Switches, and then just being able to lay the hammer. Now imagine if this thing had Ice Hammer, that'd be something. Anyways, we can move on to our third pick, and the power doesn't stop. Okay, so our third pick is going to be Mega Heracross, and I wanted to use this thing with a couple different ideas in mind. I was thinking maybe with like Mew or Zapdos or something like that. I didn't necessarily want to pick it up in the PBF. Like I wasn't planning on necessarily picking it up in the PBF until I realized that it was potential that I could get Coco, and then I thought Coco into Mega Heracross would be so nice because this thing rips grass types. A new one can set up on grass types. Things like that. I thought it would be a really nice nice monster to bring in, a really good breaker to bring in off of Coco. So now I've got Coco, Kieran Black, and Mega Heracross. So if you look at Mega Heracross's stats on the right, you got HP at 80, which is average, but then you got base 115 defense and base 105 special defense. So this thing's pretty bulky. It can take a hit. And then that monstrous base 185 attack stat. It's just insane. And then it's got okay speed at 75. Like, it's not like the slowest Pokemon. It's not even close to like mid-tier speeds or mid-speed tiers. But it's right below average, I guess. Around the Nidoqueen and the Heatran and the Bulu stuff. It's around that. And then it's got Skill Link, so Bullet Seed and Pin Missile and Arm Thrust. All these moves are hitting 5 hits every time, which is awesome. It's got awesome typing and bug fighting. Obviously, don't like flying types. It's 4 times super effective. But I do have Coco there, which is really nice. And this thing also gives me a pretty solid ground switch in, like just being immune to. I mean, not immune, excuse me, but resistant to ground types. With that base 110, 115 defense and 105 special defense, it's just, yeah, I'm going to enjoy this so much. Like, I love Mega Heracross. I've used it before in the past, so I'm very comfortable using it. Close combat jacks people up, resisted or not. I've seen it do over half to Volcarona, over half to Azumarill, just close combat. And, like, like a +2 close combat can drop something like Hawlucha that resists, or... It's just, I mean, Hawlucha's not like bulky or anything. I'm just saying, like, it's a resistant and it gets dropped by a +2 close combat, which is insane to me. So next up, for pick number 4, I grabbed Nidoqueen. What I noticed I wanted immediately after I grabbed my first 3 picks was some Stealth Rock options, a ground type option, something to resist fighting types, because Kieran Black doesn't appreciate them. Coco also helps with that, and Heracross also helps with that. So I got 3 Pokemon that support Kieran Black in terms of switching into fighting types already, which is really nice. This thing gives me an electric immunity, so nobody's necessarily using my electric terrain and abusing it against me. And at the same time, Nidoqueen and Nidoking, these 2 Pokemon are really good checks to Tapu Koko in terms of their typings and their stats and their abilities even. So grabbing this made it to where nobody else could get Nidoqueen and use it against my Koko. So that was the thought process there, and I really like my first 4 picks. This thing gives me a rocker and a stealth rocker in one. It has 2 amazing abilities in sheer force and poison point, and it gives me, like I mentioned, a nice ground type, which I didn't have previously. Prevents people from spamming my own terrain against me, like I mentioned. This thing has phenomenal coverage. I'm not going to sit and talk about this. It's not even because you guys know, but because its coverage is too insane to even talk about. So yeah, Life Orb sets, Black Sludge sets, pretty much Sugarberry sets, maybe some Scarf sets, and maybe even, well, no, I don't think there would be a reason to run specs when you could just run Life Orb. Life Orb Sheer Force makes for some nice damage output there. And its stats, this Pokemon's kind of like Clefable in a sense, that its stats aren't insane, but its typing and its abilities make it one of the best Pokemon in the game, in draft format, in my opinion. This is, it's not a top 15 mon, but I think that's not necessarily a debate, but I think somebody needs to go through and rank every Pokemon from every tier, every point value, however your draft system works. I think all these Pokemon need to be drafted, or excuse me, not drafted, but ranked in order. Like, I would like to see where Nidoqueen stacks up against things like, I don't know. Well, that's a discussion for another day, so I'm not going to drag that on. Anyways, we can move on to pick number 5 now, where we're going to try to get some more hazards, more defense synergy going on throughout the later. Like, our first 3 picks is basically, we're going to have more offense, and even some of my defensive mons can be offensive, such as Nidoqueen here on screen. But my first 3 picks was really all the offense I needed. So now it's time to synergize my squad a little bit, get some Stealth Rocks, some hazard support, some ways to remove hazards outside of Coco, so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and jump into pick number 5 and see what we got here. And at pick number 5, we decided to grab Ferrothorn. So Ferrothorn's a really solid mon, and it's a nice Steel type and a Grass type. It gives me both in one. I know I'm kind of weak to fire now. I've got Heracross weak to fire, Ferrothorn weak to fire, and my Dragon does not resist fire. So that's a little bit unfortunate, but we can worry about that later in our draft, I think. This thing has insane defenses at base 131 defense and base 116 special defense. Base 94 attacks, not incredibly low or anything. With that attack stat and that speed stat, it does have some pretty hard-hitting gyro balls. And its HP stat, like I mentioned, in that 70 range, which is the average. So it's got the ability Iron Barbs. So you take damage upon contact, I think like 16 or 17% or something like that. This thing gives me another Stealth Rocker. It gives me a Spiker as well. So now I have 2 Stealth Rockers and a mon that can get up Spikes, and then another mon that can get up Toxic Spikes. So that's really nice. This does give me another fighting weakness, but like I mentioned, I do have Coco, which resist, Mega Heracross, which resist, and Nidoqueen, which resist. So fighting types shouldn't be too big of an issue, and if they are, we can always patch that up with some trades later on down the line. Anyways, this thing doesn't get I guess it does get some weird coverage and stuff, but not necessarily anything that's very usable. I don't think. Like it gets Thunderbolt and so just listen, it gets Flash Cannon, Energy Ball, Giga Drain, Grass Knot. it gets what did I say earlier? Thunderbolt? I'm pretty sure I said Thunderbolt earlier. And then just like every other one, gets what's it called? Hidden powers of choice. You got things like Magnet Rise and Iron Defense and things that those weird Steel types get. And then it doesn't really I guess it could be, in terms of setting up, Curse could be an option. But it gets a bunch of weird special attacking moves, and it has base 54 special attack. So I don't really see that being used all that much. Probably never, ever in the history of draft. But it's a solid Pokemon nonetheless. I do think I feel like I'll be having to run Ockerberry a lot, but I want to stray away from that and just always be able to scout. I don't want to rely on berries to avoid 4 times weaknesses and bopping people. But yeah, it's going to be it for Ferrothorn, and we can move on to our 6th pick now. So I was just talking about 4 times weaknesses, and I decided to go ahead and pick up Swampert. So Swampert is another ground type that Coco doesn't necessarily like. I know it gets Grass Knot, but still, it's another grass type off the board, and I love Swampert and Ferrothorn together. I was reading some threads about Pokemon that pair well together. Ferrothorn and Swampert, it's really, I looked into it more in depth. Not only do you have to pick either Hidden Power Fire or Hidden Power Grass to maybe have some coverage. I know some things like Victini, for example, could bust through both of them with V-Create and Energy Ball or something like that. But in terms of things that don't have coverage like that, when you're picking a hidden power, my squad makes it hard for you to do that. You know, you either got to cover for Ferrothorn or you got to cover for Pert. And Ferrothorn, or excuse me, Swampert doesn't have reliable recovery. You might have to use Rest Talk or something like that. So being able to throw off a Leech Seed with Ferrothorn and use that as recovery for Swampert is phenomenal. It gets two decent abilities in Torrent and Damp. Not anything too crazy, but has a pretty cool typing in Water Ground. Some decent bulk with 100 HP, 90 in both defenses, and then has very usable attack stats in base 110 and base 185 attack and special attack respectively. And then, like I mentioned, it's pretty slow if you look at the speed tier. But it's here to get rocks up, it's here to take hits, it's here to spam earthquakes, and I guess it does have some cool techs. It gets something like, what is it, Mirror Coat and Counter? Is that the two moves that dish back damage? And then it gets some techs like Avalanche, which does double the damage back. Like if you move second, it does double power. So it's like a base 120 ice type attack, which is insane. It gets Endeavor, it gets Hammer Arm and Focus Blast, it gets Seismic Toss and Roar. So that's really nice. It also gets Sludge Wave for things like Bulu and Whimsicott, which could be problematic. It's like I mentioned, a Stealth Rock option, and it's just a nice mon to pair with the rest of my mons. Pretty much, like there's not too much to say about it. It's typing and being able to get Stealth Rocks up. So, like I mentioned, my first 3 picks couldn't have Stealth Rocks. My second 3 picks were all Rockers. So that's really nice. And Middle Queen, Ferrothorn, and Pert. And I think they synergize not necessarily perfectly, but well enough for me to use them on my team. And I think they'll support my first 3 picks really well. But that was basically the first half of the draft, and we can dive into that second half of the draft, getting those 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 picks, baby. Let's go. Okay, our 7th pick. Now, this wasn't planned, but this one's a rocker too. And you look at its stats. This thing is one of the more well-rounded stat distributions. I love this. Like, you look at Azelf, and it's got extremely high special attack, and speed, but it's got piss poor defenses. And then you look at Uxie, and it's got fucking incredible defense and special defense, but it has no attacking stats. This Mesprit. You are the perfect combination of Azelf and Uxie, in my opinion. It gets shit coverage, I believe. Not the best, but like I mentioned, it gets Stealth Rocks, it gets U-Turn, it gets Thunder Wave, it gets Psychic, obviously. It does get some okay, not necessarily, but it gets some decent coverage, I guess. Not the best, and it does get things like Calm Mind. It gets Dazzling Gleam for Dark types, Energy Ball, Extra Sensory, and Psychic, like I mentioned earlier. It gets access to Healing Wish and Knockoff, which could be some nice utility there. Dual Screens and Mirror Coat, which is nice. I don't think it gets Counter. It might get Counter, I'm not sure. Could be a potential Trick Room user on my squad. As you can see, I do have the potential to use a Trick Room squad with Mega Heracross. Mega Heracross is a phenomenal abuser of Trick Room. Obviously not the best, not like Caphagrius or Reuniclus or Mega Camerupt or Azumarill or anything like that. But nonetheless, it can abuse Trick Room really well. I've actually, the first time I drafted Mega Heracross, I drafted it with all kinds of speed control, one of them being Trick Room, and was able to actually get maybe 2-3 sweeps in the end game. Maybe not necessarily finishing his entire team, but like wiping out like 4 or 5 mons at the end with Trick Room. Well, not 4 or 5, but let's say 2 or 3 or 4 with Mega Heracross. So yeah, I hope Mesprit can be a phenomenal mon here. Like I mentioned, its stat distribution makes me so happy. I love that 105 across the board, except for HP and speed, setting at 80, which isn't bad whatsoever, especially with 105 across the board. Can be I can make it max HP, max defense, and then things like Mega Medicham are bouncing off of me. I can make it max special defense and max HP, and things like Mega Alakazam are bouncing off of me. So that's just to put that into perspective there. So yeah, I like Mesprit a lot, and hopefully it can be a good pick for us. But we can move on to our 8th pick now and get into that. Okay, so we were finally able to pick up Mismagius. I've been able to pick this up in a couple different drafts. But I didn't want to just draft it. I wanted to actually draft it and use it as a Z-Move user. And with Coco, so in the PBF this season, we have a new Z-Move rule user. We used a tier system this season. We strayed away from our point values that we've been doing for a couple of seasons now. We got back on the 5-tier system with a mega and four free, yeah, 4 budget picks. And so basically you can have 2 Z-Move users, but you have to span them out like this. If you use a tier 1, you got to use a tier 5 Z-Move user. If you use a tier 2, you got to use a tier 4 as well. And if you use a tier 3, your other Z-Move user also has to be a tier 3. So that was really cool, and it allowed me to use Tapu Koko and Miss Magius in this. So I was really hype and happy about this. This thing can be a Calm Mind Sweeper, it can be a Nasty Plot Sweeper, it can be a Destiny Bond Scarfer. I love that. Dark Pulse, Dazzling Gleam, Energy Ball. It gets some really cool abilities there, or not abilities, but coverage. It gets Foul Play and Hex, which is pretty cool. Heal Bell is nice. Magic Coat. Like I mentioned, Nasty Plot. It gets Memento. Z Memento would be pretty cool. Pain Split and Perish Song, all kinds of cool coverage, and gets things like Taunt, Will-O-Wisp, Thunder Wave, Trick, Toxic. Such a good mon in my opinion, and it gives me a Ghost type with the ability to Levitate. So Mesprit also had Levitate. Miss Magius has Levitate. Heracross is a resistance to ground, and Tapu Koko appreciates all of that. Miss Magius also, Miss Magius and Mesprit also are immune and resist fighting types, which Kieran Black loves. And yeah, this thing has some cool techs. I won't give away any of its techs since this is one of my Z-Move users. I won't give a single tech away about this bad boy. And we can actually just go ahead and move on from it. Well, we'll take a quick look at its stats on the right-hand side. 60, 60, 60, 105, 105, 105, HP, attack, defense, special defense, and speed respectively. So yeah, let's just go ahead and move on to our 9th pick before I spoil things that might happen in the season. So our 9th pick, we've got Silvally here. This thing has base 95 across the board. Its type, I can use any of its typings, and of course its ability is the RKS system, which allows it to be any typing, depending on whatever system you put in it. Anyways, this is my 9th pick. It's kind of a strange pick in my opinion. I don't think it's necessarily the greatest Pokemon or anything like that, but I think its stats, its ability to run it's multi attack or something like that, which is a 90 base physical attack, 90 base power physical attack, which it's a normal type until you put your memory in. So depending on what type of memory you have a 90 base power physical attack of that typing, which is really nice. It also gets some really cool coverage. I won't go over all of its coverage or anything like that, but it gets some cool techs like Tailwind. It can U-turn out, and I think it gets Parting Shot. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure it does. And then, oh yeah, I just mentioned I wasn't gonna say those. Yes, I'm not gonna say that, but yeah, or I just saw a tech online, so yeah, I'm not gonna mention its text or anything like that. I think it gets phenomenal coverage and gets some pretty cool moves, like I mentioned, Parting Shot, U-turn, Pursuit. And then, like I mentioned, some text that I won't go over right now. You guys can check its moveset out. But basically, I drafted this thing. It's a lower, I think it's a tier 4 Pokemon with all typings. So it gives me the ability to run, I don't have a flying type on my squad. So this gives me, the ability to run one. I don't have a rock type on my squad. So this gives me the ability to run one. So on and so forth. And it can be a really solid mon in terms of setting up like a Parting Shot, and then going into something else and setting up with it because its attack and special attack has been lowered or something like that. But yeah, Silvally's, I've used it before actually. It's not the greatest Pokemon by any means, but it does have some nice techs on it and has some decent stats on it too. So it could be like, I could turn this into a fire type thing and use it as like a semi-check to something like Victini or something. But anyways, we can move on to our 10th and 11th pick and get this draft over with eventually. Our 10th pick is Alomomola. So this thing is, look at its HP stat. Base 165. It's got base 80 defense. So this thing can make a fat defensive mon, but doesn't necessarily doesn't necessarily have any kind of like attack or special attack potency, and is more of something that you would run something like a max PBF, max HP, and just use it as a kind of a pivot and a wish passer. Kieran Black, actually Coco, Kieran Black, Heracross, Nidoqueen, Ferrothorn, Swampert, Mesprit. I doubt Miss Magius could come in on a hit. Maybe a special attack. And Savali, all those Pokemon can take at least one hit if I EV them right. Tailor the EVs to take any one hit, and they can always catch a wish from Alamomola and be basically back to full because this thing's HP stat is so insanely high. Its speed's not really that great. Scalds could probably not break a fire type substitute, but yeah, this I'm not gonna let it be taken advantage of. I'm gonna click. If I got Alamomola in, I'm clicking wish and I'm getting the hell out. Like, this thing is not gonna be set up fodder for anybody, because I know it can be. If you look at its attack and special attack, I know it can be set up fodder, but I won't allow that. I promise I won't allow that. So let's just go ahead and move on to our 11th pick now. I'm not gonna talk about its coverage. This thing's here to pass wishes. It's like, that's it. Does have some cool text that I've saw in the past, but yeah, it's here to pass wishes to my other mon. So we'll just go ahead and move on into our final pick of the draft. Alright, our 11th and final pick is our boy Entei. So we didn't have a fire type on the squad, and I felt like, why not? Like, this thing is such a phenomenal breaker, and I think, which Pokemon, okay, say my opponent has one of these 4 Pokemon: Tangrowth, Amoonguss, Mega Venusaur, insert other fat grass type here. Anyways, so those 3 Pokemon can semi-check Tapu Koko. Obviously they have to scout for Supersonic Sky Strike, stuff like that. But those mons are, like I mentioned, decent checks to Tapu Koko. So in prep, you have to decide, like, are you going to, like, okay, first of all, are you going to bring a check for Koko? And most likely the answer is yes. Unless you're bringing like hyper offense or something, you check it offensively. A counter to Koko, there you go. Which is really hard when it has access to Z moves and it's in draft format, so you're counter building anyway. Anyways, which Pokemon am I going to bring in on your grass type off of my U-turn in prep? Like, you're prepping, you don't know team preview yet, so you're just prepping. I have Koko that can U-turn into Kieran Black, Mega Heracross, or Entei for your grass types. Like, which grass? Like, okay, so you do have a grass type which checks Koko, but when I U-turn or Volt Switch as you bring it in, and I get momentum into Mega Heracross, what's your check to it? Do you have a check that can check Heracross, Kieran Black, and Entei off of your one squad that can come in after your grass type is Volt switched on? Do you have something that can switch into all those? And if you don't, it's gonna make you have to maybe bring 2 or 3 walls, maybe 4 walls, more defense because of all my offense, which is just incredible. And this thing has base 115 attack. I mean, yeah, it does. And base 115 HP, base 115 attack, base 85 defense, base 90 special attack, which is very usable. Base 75 special defense, not that great, it's kind of average, and then base 100 speed, which is really nice. But more than likely, going to be running Adamant, so you can get that extreme speed and in there with the Sacred Fire and whatnot. Obviously, Entei can be used elsewhere too, like Sunny Day, Solar Beam, Sunny Day, Flamethrower, Solar Beam, and what was that Kelly Entei set? Sunny Day. He brought in an Entei versus something, and it hard switched out. This is Gym Leader GR, remember. He set up a Sunny Day as it switched out into his Milotic, right? So the Sunny Day makes water types not do as much damage, so it was able to take the Scald from Milotic as a 2-hit KO with Solar Beam, I'm pretty sure. So then he brought in the Zygarde 50%, his opponent did, and then Entei released the Hidden Power Ice on it too. So Entei can be phenomenal in terms of special attack. It can even be really, really bulky. It has things like Psych Up too, so it could be a really nice tech. Mostly going to be spamming those banded Sacred Fires, though. I think so, anyway. I guess it depends on the matchup. It always does. But yeah, that's going to be it for our draft. We'll just recap it real quick. We have Tapu Koko, Kieran Black, Mega Heracross, Nidoqueen, Ferrothorn, Swampert, Mesprit, Mismagius, Silvally, the Almamola, and our boy Entei, as you can see on screen. And that's going to be it. So let me know what you think about our draft. Maybe some sets or something you want to see down below, or maybe some memes, anything like that. I'm open to all suggestions. Obviously, I won't be using memes if I've not already got playoffs secured yet, or unless they're just so dank that they're going to work kind of memes. But yeah, regardless of that, that's going to be the end of the draft analysis or recap. It's more of a recap. It didn't really analyze too many things. And yeah, it's going to be it. So leave a like, comment, subscribe, all the good stuff, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching.